Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Our program is about to begin. Please welcome Semafor's Andrew Friedman.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I know a lot of you are in from out of town, so you picked the coolest day of the summer to come to DC. Welcome. I'm Andrew Friedman, General Manager and Head of Public Affairs and Corporate Partnerships at Semafor. Absolutely delighted to have you here today. We are entering a new era of work driven by growing political and regulatory pressure and rapid technological change. We're here today for the release of Gallup's 2026 State of the Global Workplace Report, one of the clearest diagnostic tools for understanding what drives performance and economic growth. It captures what workers and leaders are experiencing in real time, that AI is increasingly the driver behind major shifts in productivity, skills, and confidence in the workforce. Semafor launched in 2022 with a commitment to global, transparent, fact-based journalism, and since then, we've grown to more than 1 million subscriptions by helping audiences understand the forces reshaping business, policy, and society. Today's conversation sits squarely at that intersection. This morning, we're going to hear from workforce leaders and policymakers on how AI and changing employee expectations are redefining the future of work and what institutions need to do to stay resilient and competitive. Before we begin, though, I'd like to extend an incredibly special thank you to our founding partner, Gallup, for being an extraordinary partner, for their extraordinary work in producing this report, and for building this event alongside us. And thank you to Valence, our presenting partner, and West Health, our supporting partner, for making today's live journalism possible. With that, I'm excited to welcome Gallup CEO John Clifton to the stage. Welcome, John. John, welcome to the stage and for kicking us off this morning, and thanks again for everyone being here. John is the CEO of Gallup, the world's leading authority on research and analytics about work and life. Each year, Gallup measures the engagement and ambition of workplaces in 160 countries through its renowned world poll, while serving more than 5,000 organizations worldwide. John, you're also the author of the recent bestseller, Blind Spot. Congratulations on that as well.
Thank you.
So let's jump in for today and start with the big picture. Gallup's latest data shows AI use at work just hit an all-time high. How is that? What does that fear mean? And really, what does it mean for people who are also scared of job losses? How worried should people actually be about it, though?
Well, first, let's say exactly what the worry is. We did a study with Bentley University, and right now, 75% of Americans are really concerned about what AI is going to do to jobs. And in fact, in the past quarter, we just found that 18% of people think the job that they have today is going to get disrupted. In fact, before the commencement speeches, they got a bit disrupted. We actually found in a study that we do with the Walton Family Foundation that anger toward AI went up 9 points among young people. And so this concern is turning from anxiety to almost rage for some. But if you don't mind, I maybe this is a bit of a controversial take, but when we talk about job fear, I think one very fair question is, what are we afraid of? And the reason I say that is because right now, when you look at the world's workforce, 80% of all of the world's workers have quietly quit. 80%. And by the way, it's not their fault. A lot of times when people hear that, they think, these individuals, these employees aren't giving it their all. That's not what the problem is. In fact, work is not the problem. We did a project with an organization called Purcell, and we asked people, do you enjoy the work that you do? And the results that came back, this actually kind of surprised me, especially because now there was even a kind of a joke in a medical journal that said that Mondayitis is actually now a medical term. But when we asked them, do you enjoy the work they do? 80% of people came back and told us that they enjoy the work that they do. And so the problem is not work. The problem that causes people to quietly quit is the workplace. And ultimately, I think as we're all talking about all this worry and this anxiety, let's remember that the workplace is fundamentally broken. And so maybe we could use this as a moment to finally get it right.
So that really sets the stage for what's actually happening inside of these organizations. You've been saying a lot of the world's workers, they were checked out long before AI actually arrived. What actually happens to engagement when AI shows up, and does it make it better or worse inside the workplace itself?
It actually depends on the culture that you already have. Because if you have a good culture or if you have a bad culture, all AI will do is amplify that current culture. And the challenge now that you have, because if you think about what good management looks like, that good management is what you see as with good AI use. I mean, using natural language to give instruction and then actually evaluating the output to see on whether or not it's good or not is what we have called for almost 100 years good management. And if you have bad management, then all that breaks down, and now you just get a larger bill that gets sent to the CFO's office because of tokenomics. People are burning through a whole bunch of stuff because they don't know how to use natural language to give direction. And one of the challenges that we've seen is we've asked human beings about whether or not natural language lands on them in instruction, and we find that half of the world's workers don't even know what's expected of them at work. So if we can't instruct a human, how can you instruct a robot? And so ultimately what we see is that if you have a bad culture, AI is just going to amplify that good culture. But if you have a good culture, it'll amplify that and you'll see the productivity gains.
Amazing. And let's move from perception to performance. We talked about AI adoption, but organizations actually getting value out of AI. We talked about this at World Economy a few months ago. And where are you seeing the biggest productivity gains actually happening?
I think we've probably all heard of these famous studies now. There was the one last year from MIT where they looked at 300 companies, $35 billion was invested, and they found that 95% of those companies saw a 0% return on their investments in AI. In fact, there was another study that was published in NBER. They looked at, it was between 4,000 to 6,000 executives across 4 countries. Same thing. It was somewhere around 89 to 90% said we haven't seen really any gains as a result of these particular investments. But you're asking a great question, which is where do you see the payoffs? One is a lot of times people are saying individually they are seeing improvements. They're seeing improvements within their own research. They're seeing efficiencies that they can draft memos, do research faster. But, and again, you can see that 65% of workers now will actually tell you that, yeah, they see a little bit of productivity gains. What they don't see is the transformational effect. And that's where the number collapses down below 15%. And again, all this comes right back to the same thing on whether or not you have good management within the organization.
So work, as we all know, it's about more than just productivity. Beyond AI, Gallup has also just studied 350,000 workers across 149 countries on the relationship between work and well-being. What do people actually need from work?
Well, I don't think this can go without saying that at work, you know, your pay needs to be right. You need to be able to feel safe. And by the way, the single biggest cause of burnout, I think a lot of times, or at least for me, this surprised me in our research for it because I thought it was hours worked. It's not what it is. The single biggest cause of burnout, and again, the reason you got to get this right is because if you don't know what causes it, how can you fix it? But the single biggest cause of burnout is perceived unfair treatment at work. So those things you got to nail. But I think what you're asking me is more on the emotional economy side about what really makes work awesome. Yeah. And I think that comes down to 3 things. One is, do you have the opportunity to do what you do best? That's a huge aspect of it. The second one I would say is, do you have a mission that is clear and inspiring? And the last one is I think, do you have people that you love to jam with every single day? I think if you have those 3 things, I think you have a great job.
I love it. And that brings us finally to the leadership takeaway. We have a lot of leaders in this room today, so I'm excited to end on this one. When you put these findings together and what you've seen in your studies and research, AI adoption, engagement, and global well-being in the workplace, what's the one piece of advice you'd leave with every CEO and CHRO walking away from today?
I think, you know, there's that famous line that he never actually wrote it, but it's attributed to Peter Drucker, but he says that culture eats strategy for breakfast. You know, every single executive, everyone in HR, everyone that's on an exec team, their CEO is saying, get AI in as fast as you can because they want to see the productivity gains. They want to see the quality gains. They want to see speed because they're getting demands from their clients. They're getting demands from their shareholders. But you're never going to get AI in until you get your culture right. So you could almost tweak that line that's attributed to Peter Drucker and say that culture eats AI for breakfast. So that would be my advice.
I love it. Fantastic notes in on John Clifton. Thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Please welcome Katie George of Microsoft and PBS NewsHour's Amna Nawaz.
everyone. Good morning, Katie. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be here.
So we're going to talk about transformation inside Microsoft, also beyond. I want to start with my favorite quote from one of my mentors, the late, great Cokie Roberts, who always used to say, change is hard. She said if she could embroider one thing on a pillow and gift it to everybody, it would be that. Change is hard. So this idea of transformation, just tell us about how you view that inside Microsoft.
Well, I think the first thing that we've learned is that change is hard. Transformation is hard. But it's just a business transformation. I think originally we actually treated this like a product launch, a tech project. It's IT-led. And we realized this is really about a full business transformation, which means that leaders have to be clear about what they're trying to solve for, what matters in their business, how will they accelerate their competitive advantage, and then really tie together not just the tech piece, how do we use AI to do that acceleration, but also the people side and really an understanding of process as well.
And you've done this in a really intentional and interesting way. There's one initiative I want to ask about specifically called Camp Air.
Yes.
Just tell us about how it works and where that idea came from, what you hope it does.
Camp Air was a grassroots idea from one of our engineers, which was early on, how do we get our engineers more comfortable using AI and really changing the way they work? And so he developed the first kind of prototype of an immersive 3-week boot camp. And my team has now gotten involved and continued to evolve it and have scaled it to large parts of our engineering organization. And what makes it, I think, really special is that it is not a learning program designed for individuals. The whole team goes to this 3-week boot camp together. And it's a cross-functional team. So it's our engineers, it's our product managers, it's our designers. And the first thing we tell them when they get there is leave your discipline at the door. And we immerse the team in all of the greatest AI tools. And of course, in this space, it's just been, incredibly exciting to see how AI has taken off with agentic coding, even the last 6 months. But instead of just teaching the coders the agentic coding and the designers the design tools, we immerse the whole team in the entire set of tools that can help them with the entire process. And by week 2, they are starting to work together differently and think about how to work together in a way that really accelerates their own projects. And they're actually applying these tools and this experimentation in how they work to their actual projects. So it's team-based, it's practitioner-led, by the way, and it's in the flow of work. And even our engineers at Microsoft, have come at this with some trepidation. There's anxiety about, will there still be a role for engineers? There's anxiety about, will I be successful in this new world? And in fact, we spend a lot of time on mindset because we have to actually help people understand, okay, you have seen yourself as a master craftsperson. You are a master coder. Well, you don't need to code anymore. Instead, you get to be a full stack product builder. And to me, product builder sounds more exciting than coder. But if you have actually grown up as a coder and that's what your professional identity is, it's a big mindset shift. And so we spend time on that because we see not just in software engineering, but in all parts of the organization, jobs are shifting to still require this kind of expertise that our coders bring and others bring to the table, but now actually playing a more integrative role. So we spend time on mindset. We have the whole team start experimenting with the way that they work. And we do exit interviews, and people come out of this so excited. They come out saying, I never want to work the old way again. And it's been really magical that even in 3 weeks, and we talk about it as going slow to go fast, it is a real investment to take people out of kind of the cycle of trying to, do their jobs for 3 weeks to allow them this time to experiment. And one of the things I wanted to reflect on, your quote from Cokie, change is hard, but actually change is now the norm. Mm-hmm. And AI means AI is going to continue to get better. The models, the products. And so we're trying to create a culture where people actually enjoy change. They like experimentation. They like adaptation. We talk at Microsoft about having a growth mindset culture. And that work that Satya and others did is so prescient because now in the age of AI, we all need to embrace this notion that we're constantly changing and evolving and getting better at what we do.
I want to talk more about the timeline and the employee perspective in a moment too, but just in terms of the decision to start this kind of camp, to take people away from their jobs for weeks at a time, there has to be a productivity impact. There has to be a cost and investment associated with that on your end. So how did you calculate that like this investment is worth the return that you're getting on it?
Well, as I said, it is about go slow to go fast, and we are seeing the go fast, right? And so more and more people, the way change happens at Microsoft is someone has an idea. One of the things my team does is to highlight things that are really working, and then help scale them to everyone. And so what we're seeing now are, new products like Cowork and Scout being brought to market in just record time with a completely different way of working. And so you can see and feel the results. It's very visible. It's not incremental. It's a step change in the way things happen. And we're seeing that in all different parts of the organization as well. It's not just about software engineering.
So you mentioned, and we have this conversation often around this from the employee perspective and the workforce perspective, there's obviously fear, there's obviously anxiety, there's a lot of uncertainty. It's fair to say there's a lot that even you in leadership don't yet know about the impact here. Microsoft is not alone in having to go through some pretty severe layoffs related to, not directly replaced by AI, but jobs, but some 4,800 jobs earlier this year, like 2% of your global workforce. I know Meta and Amazon have done the same. So give us a sense of what you are hearing from your workforce. I mean, I know people may go through camp and have a good experience, but what are they concerned about? What do you hear from them, and how do you message around that fear?
Well, we really coach our leaders to be very honest and upfront. So to be really clear about, we don't have all the answers, but also to be clear about their intent. Our intent is to empower every human. That's actually our mission statement, is to empower every person and organization to achieve more. And so we're very clear that that's our intent, and we tell stories about where we're achieving that intent. We also talk a lot about the fact that we can't future-proof any job. In fact, every single one of our jobs will change. But we will help you future-proof your career. And to future-proof your career means getting involved and really being at the front end of reinventing how we all work with AI, and really learning those skills and being the best salesperson, the best HR person, the best finance person you can, using all of the power that AI brings. We do a survey every year called the Work Trend Index, and what we find is that the people who we call frontier professionals, really the power users, say that 85% of the things that they do now are new things that have augmentation from AI, things they couldn't have done before. And I think that's another really important part of the messaging, is that if you look at, one of the things my team has done is 100 case studies of AI transformation inside Microsoft to really see what are the patterns, what's worked, what hasn't. We've then created a playbook that we scale, in terms of helping our teams understand how to use AI to really drive business performance in a sustainable way. And one of the things that we have learned is that where AI really sings is where it adds new capability into work processes. So my favorite example, actually, because it's so simple, is our internal audit team that has really leaned into using AI. And they absolutely have improved productivity. They can complete audits faster than before, and that's great. We can then do more audits for the company. That improves our risk posture. That's great. But what they would say is far more important is that every time they do an audit now, it has proactive risk assessment identified already. So it's a completely new capability that the audit is doing. It's not replacing what the human used to do. It's bringing something new to the table that creates a completely different value proposition for what that team can accomplish.
You mentioned the idea of a career, right? For someone who enters Microsoft at an entry-level position and wants to stay for years and years. What does that mean for what that career trajectory now looks like if everything is being redefined in the infrastructure of how we work?
Well, actually, reimagining early career is something that I'm really passionate about, partly personally, like many of you. I have a son who's 26. He's in law school. And, I don't want his job to go away, his future to go away as an early career future lawyer. What we're doing is redefining what early career means in a way that actually I'm really excited about, because I think it makes the early career jobs more interesting than ever before. So if you think about giving early career folks, all of the power of AI, they can actually do far more than they used to. They can be far more productive. They can participate in a much broader way in creating value for the company. We are finding two things that really enable that. One is we're being much more intentional about mentorships and multi-generational teams. We're realizing that you have to pair these early career folks who come in, by the way, hungry and eager to use AI and experiment, and all of that just brings wonderful creative energy into the organization. But we pair them up with more experienced folks who really understand where value is created and what good looks like, right? So that they actually have the benefit of that perspective, and they're learning that judgment much faster. It's no longer okay to have somebody kind of take 20 years to kind of figure out what creates value, and in the meantime, they're just kind of plugging away, at their little piece of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. We need everybody to understand that faster, so we're redesigning the way teams work in order to facilitate it. We're also using AI to compress experience. So people can use, digital and AI kind of twinning to experience problems that they might not otherwise have experienced for 20 years. They can experience much faster in the way that we think about onboarding, in the way that we think about development journeys.
Transformations usually have a beginning and an end, mm-hmm. right? So how do you look at the timeline? I mean, in the broader sense here, we know that AI adoption is rising across the workforce and workplaces, but it's been slow, right? Gallup surveys have shown mm-hmm. it's gone up from about 4% in 2023 to about 12% in 2025. So there's the speed of the development of the technology, and there's sort of a slower timeline to adaptation and implementation. That's right. So how do you have the workforce you have to turn them into the workforce you think you need for the future. What's the timeline for you? How do you look at that?
Well, as I said before, I think what's interesting about this transformation, and I've been involved in lots of eras of transformation in my career, as many of you have, this is not a from to, right? This is actually, when we do that camp air that I talked about, we're trying to actually create the dynamic such that the team is now comfortable and constantly experimenting together with how they work and evolving. If you look at software engineering as an example, we've now moved that the bottleneck is review, right? So now they actually have to spend more time in review than they would have. So they have to constantly evolve where they're focused and how they're working together. And we're trying to create that culture. So there isn't a timeline of, we're going to, finish in 18 months and then we will have completed our transformation. This is an ongoing thing. That said, you're right that adoption can be slow. And so we're doing a lot to, even at Microsoft, and there are lots of reasons for that. Some of it is employee resistance, but some of it is just the friction in enterprise business processes, right? And so one of the things that we've done with our playbook is to identify several different ways, we call them recipes, for really connecting AI into the workflow in a way that drives performance and actually speeds that whole process. So for example, the first recipe is the simplest. We look at a persona, so a role. Let's take our sales force, right? We have a lot of people who are account executives that call on our customers. And what we've done is we've done ride-alongs with them to really understand what are all the different things that they do to be successful. And then we've identified best practice prompts and best practice agents and designed agents, et cetera, coaching agents, deal agents, all sorts of things to really help them not only do their job kind of faster or more efficiently, but actually to add much more value to the customer in a way that was never possible before. And now we're scaling those best practices to everybody. So we're not hoping that each individual discovers this by playing around with Copilot themselves. Mm-hmm. We encourage that experimentation and innovation, of course. But we are making sure that we are helping people see how to use these things, these tools and best practice in a way that really accrues to the system performance and the overall business performance. And so a lot of our change programs like Camp Air, in the Salesforce, we actually have one program where we have weekly huddles. Just like in Camp Air, led by practitioners, practitioner to practitioner. We're groups of about 20 people who all have the same role, meet together, and they talk about how they're using AI to actually be better at their role. And that has been tremendous in driving not just the amount of usage, but the effectiveness of that usage. Because, as I said, the tools keep improving. So if you kind of figured out how to use one of our sales tools 6 months ago, and then you kind of stopped experimenting, you aren't using all of the great, capability of the tools anymore. And so these huddles are kind of a way of constantly refreshing everybody's thinking and sharing knowledge and best practice. And so those are the kinds of programs that we're using to ensure that we're helping everybody get onto the best practice curve and then stay there by continuing to evolve together.
A lot more to talk about. We'll have to check in with you as the transformation continues. Katie George of Microsoft, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you so much.
Please welcome the Republican Senator from Kansas, Roger Marshall, and Semafor's Burgess Everett.
Morning, everyone. I am Burgess Everett, Congressional Bureau Chief of Semafor. This is Senator Roger Marshall. He's a Kansas Republican who I'd say is a Trump ally with some populist-leaning tendencies. Is that fair?
Perfect.
Thanks for being here. Let's start off real quick. What are the dog days of summer like right now in Congress? How are you feeling about where things are going as a Republican in the majority?
Yeah. I think number one, the election is starting to wear heavy on our shoulders. Like I feel like I should be back. I'm up this year.
Yeah.
So I feel like I should be back in Kansas. And at the same time, I'm already focused on, can we keep the government open? That would probably be the big long-term goal here, September 30th. But then today we have our price tags bill. Patients deserve price tags, not surprise billing. It forces transparency, competition into healthcare. This is why I came to DC, was to do this bill. This is a concept I had 15 years ago. I've been in Congress now 9 years. And this is one of the big three reasons I came, and we're going to get it through committee today. So.
Right. And this is part of a bigger health package,
You
right?
got it, of course.
What are the chances of that passing at this point?
Oh, I think it's going to pass the committee, or we wouldn't be on it. We've got lots of co-sponsors on both sides of the aisle. It is a bipartisan issue. This will bring down the cost of health care $1,000 a month is what we're expecting for an average family. There's no other bill out there. There's nothing out there that would bring down the cost of living more than this bill would. The president's very motivated. I think that we're all in Congress motivated. So I think it has a real chance to getting to the finish line.
Well, if you see me hobble down the stairs, it's because I just had knee surgery. And when I got my MRI, I had no idea how much it cost. So this bill would solve that problem.
And that MRI, it might be $600 here and it might be $3,000 here for the same quality. I ran a hospital, not only along with my doctor's practice, oversaw health departments. I've seen healthcare inside and out. And this is the great boogeyman, is why do you have to wait till you still won't know what the price is till 3 months from now.
Right. So on that note, I mean, you were a doctor before you came to Congress. How do you see AI affecting, say, that industry and others? I feel like doctors are something that maybe can't be replaced by AI, but maybe it would help them. How do you see technology and the rise of AI affecting jobs like that?
Right. So I think the big picture to me, my theme would be human in the loop. You want to be the human in the loop of AI. Even today, I use AI 2 or 3 hours a day. On Saturdays, I'll spend 4 or 6 hours researching something, right? So in healthcare,
like legislation you're writing, things like
legislation, preparing for this meeting, so what does AI mean to other people besides me? What type of jobs is it going to? So the fact-finding part of this, that usually we had ledge staff working on the fact-finding. So I'm constantly working ahead and trying to get that fact-finding part out of this. And then once I find the facts, then I can jump to the future. But so the doctor, I think it's going to help us with the medical records. It's going to help the data entry portion of this, interpreting the data, making sure we're not missing something. Really, for the most part in medicine, AI is really machine learning. So reading pap smears, reading mammograms, but you still, if you show AI what we're looking for in a mammogram, so pull out all the ones that look like this, and this, but you still need a human in the loop to say, okay, of this 10, this is the one that needs biopsied as well.
Could it be abused in that instance? Like, could a company say, we're not approving this treatment via AI and make it harder for you to get approval? And how do you kind of overcome if there are nefarious uses of
Right.
of AI in the
So speaking
workplace?
of legislation, our prior authorization bill, which we think will get across the finish line this year as well. Again, something I've worked 8 years on, streamlining prior authorization. So AI will be used, but I think it can be used to advantage. I think that if AI looks at, let's say that I need to replace someone's hip, if the insurance company needs Medicare Advantage needs to say, here's the boxes the doctor needs to check. The nurses, do that for us, of course. We send it to the company. AI looks at that, and then great. And if one of the boxes are missed, AI kicks it out and then automatically emails my nurse and say, why didn't you do physical therapy for 3 months or whatever it is. So I think it can expedite it. It can be just like nuclear physics. It can be used for good. It can be used for bad.
Do you think, is this an overblown fear, I guess, that this is coming for our jobs, that this is going to replace people's jobs? Or do you think that's a real worry? I mean, do you see this disrupting our workforce and putting people out of work?
Oh, absolutely. And I think we're already seeing it. Thousands of jobs at Meta, Amazon, it's already happening as well. But I'm not fearful of it. When my grandfather was born, 30% of Americans worked in agriculture, 30%. When my dad was born, 10% of Americans worked, today 1%. So those jobs, people went to the city. Now they're building airplanes or electricians, all those other types of things that require a human to do them. Now we're building airplanes in Boeing and Textron in Wichita, but they're using AI for quality assurance. So they're able to scan all the rivets on this plane's wing at one moment, and then AI identifies, and again, it's machine learning, really. Say, this is the abnormal rivets. Now go back and look at it. The human in the loop says, yeah, we circled this, and this one, and they go back and do those as well. So I'm fearful of it. Not fearful, that's the wrong word. I'm cognizant of it. We need to embrace it. And I think as a congressman, senator, what I'm really, who's going to solve the riddle here? And I'm a big community college, technical college fan. I don't know how to solve the riddle. The federal government will throw money at it, but I really have faith in people back home in solving this riddle. Community colleges, technical colleges can quickly flex to the needs of the day. My wife and I, both community college graduates, first generation college students as well, huge fans of it. So I think if you're a data entry person right now, and even if you're a legal aid, all those types of things like that, you better be figuring out what Plan B is. And I think our community colleges and technical colleges are the player. The interesting thought I had yesterday, we were discussing this amongst ourselves at lunch, and I said, well, certainly the early entry accountants and lawyers, those jobs will be taken over by AI. But how do we get seasoned lawyers and seasoned accountants if they don't start here as well? So you're an accountant that's graduating. You got to figure out how you're going to get in that loop and interpreting that data, I guess, and then giving it to your partners. You better be able to understand once the data is assimilated, be able to contribute to what this data means.
And I think congressional journalists are probably irreplaceable, right?
They're absolutely irreplaceable because I will not answer a robot when I'm getting ready to hop on the trolley at the Capitol.
Yeah, I don't know how many years away we are from that. You mentioned you're up for re-election. The other slice of this is the data centers, and we're seeing, especially in the Democratic Party, people are passing moratoriums and things like that. What are you hearing from people back in Kansas? Are they like, I don't want to see these built here? Or do they understand that we need them to compete with China, for example, on technology?
Yeah, people in Kansas are on fire against them. And,
oh, really?
And several dozen counties have placed moratoriums on them. And certainly it is a state issue. It's a county issue, really, a zoning issue. But I certainly support their moratoriums. I think they need to figure out the water issue and the electricity issue. I don't know why we would give them any tax breaks because they really don't bring a lot of jobs after they're built. I mean, once they're built, there's some maintenance to them as well, but I certainly don't want it to drive up other people's electricity costs. And I see that over and over. Panasonic came to Kansas, built this huge plant, and they had huge electricity needs. And guess what? Everyone around in that area has got increased rates because of the increased demand as well. So we need to solve the energy problem. The closed loop systems are going to make up for a lot of it as well. But Kansans are really upset about it. And I've learned that we better listen and figure out. And I wonder if the backdrop of this, if they're really worried about the job issue. But we'll see how that plays out.
So would you would you support maybe a statewide moratorium in Kansas at this point? Do you think that you need to press pause in your whole state at this point?
Oh, I think certainly that's not a Senate decision to make. I don't think if I was a governor, I would push for that. I'd rather try to keep the decisions local.
Right. And do you think, like, is there a role, I think, for the federal government right now to pass AI legislation, or do you want to leave it to the states? Because that's been something that's kind of been bubbling now for more than a year. The president wanted to,
Right.
All state laws kind of preempted by federal.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So preemption is just impossible right now. I feel like Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold. Let's get it just right. And, the big part of AI I'm probably most concerned about is pornography, going after children, some of those types of things. I am ready to pass some type of legislation that would impact it from that standpoint. But that would probably be part of a bigger social media legislation. The quick thing I would say about AI is that the national security side of this. And I really think that's what's going to drive Congress's decisions up here more than the job issue. I think we're going to quickly respond to this. When quantum computing becomes a real thing combined with AI, I think that foreign countries, terrorists, our own government will be able to break down blockchain technology and encryption as well. So I think that's my big fear, is what it could do, what terrorists could do to assault our all the cyber issues as well. So keep your eye on quantum computing. I think it's real. And again, the good part though is we're going to be able to do precision medicine, precision agriculture, all those types of things by using this quantum computing, looking at your DNA. And let's say you have hypertension. If I got a menu of medicines I can use for hypertension now, which one of those is the best one for your DNA? You have type 2 diabetes. Which one of the GLP-1s will be best for you? Rather than traditionally, it's kind of like, well, we start off with here's the recipe we start with. It might take us 6 months or a year to get it right.
Right. Speaking of the workforce, I was looking at the seniority on the HELP committee. It looks like you have a chance to probably be chairman or the ranking member, depending on what Rand Paul does next Congress. Is that something you're interested in, running that committee, if it's an option?
So, and Lisa Murkowski would be in front of me as well. So they would have to give up their committee assignments. It would be a great honor, but certainly respect where Lisa and what Rand are going to do. But I think my experiences in the real world.
Yeah, this does seem like a specialty of yours.
Yeah, so it's just not, it's health, education, labor, and pensions. And more than being a doctor, I mentioned I ran a hospital, I've overseen health departments, but the labor part of this, I was raised in a union town, I've worked at refineries, so I think I understand a little bit more about the labor part of this, education. I think being a first generation college student, I have a special appreciation for education as well, and want to make sure that our public schools and our public universities, colleges survive through all these transitions as well. They need to become more efficient, but I think that those experiences in life have prepared me for this moment. And if I have the opportunity, why did I come here? I think you can impact the priorities on that committee. Of all the priorities out there, I think that my leadership skills, what I've done, running a hospital, military experience, I think leadership is just so important right now. Picking up all these things we're talking about today, where can government make a difference without overreaching?
And of course, to get there, you would have to win your re-election
that's
race
a good idea.
This fall. I remember in 2020, I covered it a bit. The Democrats put a ton of money in there.
Right.
They're not talking about it as much this cycle. Do you expect 2-3 months from now, they're going to turn their eyes to Kansas because they think it's a seat they can compete in? Or do you feel like they have bigger fish to fry at this point?
I think that, just to be frank here, the Democrats have money to burn. They're able to raise money at the candidate level way beyond what we're able to for a whole lot of reasons. So I think they've got the money to burn. They have a solid candidate as well. I'm confident, but not cocky. But we'll run this to the finish line. We're assuming it'll be a tight race, and we're taking it for real.
Do you think Republicans have done enough on the economy and on these jobs issues to to win re-election and keep the Senate and maybe even keep the House? Or do you think that this is kind of an incomplete and you want to see more done?
Right. So I think we have, but the real issue is the price of gas. I've never seen anything like this, that my numbers just go up or down with the price of gas. We could talk about the working family tax cuts. Manufacturing is booming back home because of it. Best cattle prices in my entire lifetime. So I really, good jobs back home as well. It's one of the best economies I've lived through. At the same time, there's a group of folks out there that's struggling. It's people my children's age, folks under the age of 40, the folks that graduated with large college debt, they didn't buy a house yet, and gas and groceries, living credit card is where they are right now. So we need to continue to focus on the cost of living, which we did with our housing bill, and we're going to do today with our price tax bill as well. And then we got to get the price of gas down, and let's just, it's totally, can we get Iran wrapped up sooner than later and get that price of gas down? Because we're energy independent. The price will come tumbling down if we just get this situation in Iran wrapped up.
I mean, you and your colleagues have been, maybe not you specifically, but Republicans have been saying since February that this war needs to end yesterday, right? Are we at a point where Americans are tired of it and it has to end soon, or do you think stay in there and finish the job?
Yeah. I think every day's a new day. I stay true to my goals from the beginning. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Next, no boots on the ground. I hate war. My dad served, brother served, I served, my son is serving now. We've lost 18 soldiers now, and that's why President Eisenhower said, I hate war as only a soldier who lived it can, with all its brutality, futility, and stupidity. I'm supporting our commander-in-chief. I'm supporting our troops. If we're going to be there, we need to rip the Band-Aid off and get this done sooner than later. When will Iran finally capitulate? You're dealing with religious, irrational theocrats. So it's really, I just don't think Americans have an appreciation for how hard it is to deal with people that have no value for human life, especially women's life, children's life. They're murdering tens of thousands of Christians, and on and on. So it's really, I think it's day to day. And I just hope and pray. I just left a bipartisan prayer breakfast. There's about 24 of us that get together once a week like this. And one of our prayers is that these wars would end. But we cannot let Iran have nuclear weapons. And right now, I think the doctor in me, the benefits and the risk. I think the benefits outweigh the risk, but I sure mourn the loss of those 18 soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Senator Marshall. We'll leave it there. Appreciate you being here, sir.
Around the world, we're just thank you.
Joining Amna on stage, Diksha Shavan, George Washington University class of 2026.
Here.
Yes.
So,
I'm excited.
Can we just do a quick round of applause for our recent grad who has successfully launched paid fellowship? First big hurdle. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Your degree was in what? Remind us. It was Bachelor of Science?
It was Bachelor's of Science in Data Science and Political Science with a focus in public policy. So a bit of a mouthful. Yeah, but I got it done.
And what are you up to now?
Right now, I'm doing a research fellowship at a lab in UMD that works on trustworthy AI.
Okay.
So that's a temporary gig. It ends in August, but I've learned a lot in the last 6 weeks, which
so
is
she has
nice.
copies of her resume for anyone out there. If you're hiring, she's fabulous. You want her on your team. Let's talk about the bigger picture issue here around AI and specifically how you and your peers are looking at it, but just kind of set the foundation for us. So you've just graduated college. How often did you even use AI in school? Were you using it for classes, for internships, for your job search?
I think that we were part of a transitionary class where we didn't really have the typical LLM models when we first entered. It was kind of a slow dip into being in now, which is the ultimate AI world and landscape. We didn't really have that initially. So we had the privilege of starting college reading textbooks, and then by the end, probably not doing that as much. But I think in terms of jobs and cover letters, as many classmates, that became very much like a AI sort of task. And that was where a lot of AI was probably used and kind of guided our career trajectory that way.
And as you kind of looked out into the workforce landscape and you talked to your fellow graduates about this, did you feel confident stepping into that? Did you feel like you had the skills that you needed to step into whatever this new economy is going to be?
I think it depends on who we're talking about where the confidence is supposed to apply, because I think personally I feel confident in myself, but the institutions that are probably supposed to be there to help me get there, I'm not so confident in that. So having the jobs actually available, having those entry-level jobs actually posted and in existence, I think that's where the confidence level kind of fades. I know that I worked really hard in undergrad. I know a lot of my classmates worked very, very hard. I'm in DC, everybody had an internship at some point. So theoretically, we're kind of leading the pack. But in terms of the actual jobs that people in my class are probably interested in, that's where the confidence level kind of decreases.
In that you just don't see those jobs available.
Yeah, or like that concept of a dream job. I don't know if that really exists anymore.
Honey, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It does not.
Yeah. And it feels like you're just making so many compromises, but like you're feeling overqualified for any job. Like it doesn't align with my major. Yeah. Right? Am I an admin assistant or am I actually doing policy work, which is what my degree is in? How do you balance those two things?
And so the conversation around AI, I know you've been listening into some of the other bigger picture conversations we're having from leadership and employer perspectives, but I want to reference back something John Clifton said in the first conversation, which was how people entering the workforce view AI and what it means for their jobs. And we think back to all of those sort of viral moments we saw from commencement speeches where anytime someone mentioned AI, the entire graduating class would boo. Did that surprise you?
I mean, my degree is in data science, so I was like, oh, okay, this is like class, right? We're talking about AI, but I think for my general class, it's just reflective of this broader fear of you are completing your degree and all anyone can talk about are these systems that can potentially replace you. And so I think it's misguided fear. I mean, there's no way to boo AI out of existence, but I think there's definitely a fear in the incoming or like the recent graduates who just don't know what that means for their jobs. And there's no guidance on how to feel besides just get in line or go volunteer in a remote country. And that's your only two options.
Those are your two options. And so what is that fear? How does that fear sort of manifest itself? If you're not, does it feel like you have to make a choice between all out rejection and fighting this? Or is there more of a trend of, okay, we have to find jobs that will help us get trained to be empowered to be part of this workforce that we're stepping into?
Well, I mean, you kind of have to look at when you're actually applying to the jobs, you're applying through systems that are already putting your resume through AI. So there's no opt-out system in this case. You're kind of just, if you're accepting it, you're really just, okay, I'm going to send out 300 resumes today, 300 applications.
Probably. Is that a real number? People are sending out 300
I mean,
resumes?
I'm sure the numbers have just gone up. I think I saw numbers about how many applications that class of 25 grads have put out in comparison to 2024. And the numbers just keep going up because how many of those resumes are actually being looked at with like the intention of hiring, or are my applications just being thrown into this like black hole after I apply them? So there's no opt-out system in the way that you can pick and choose whether AI is helping you find your job or not.
So when you look to the places that you want to get support from to try to get the tools, the skills, the training. And to be fair, every generation will go through this in some way, right? It's like you need to get on the job training to do the job that you're going to be hired to do. Do you feel like it's incumbent upon employers to be providing those kinds of things? Do you feel like there should be more community nonprofits stepping in? Are there more government programs you want to count on? Like, what would you like to see happen?
I think it should just be everyone, because it's too big of a problem, and the technology is iterating so fast that I think if you put the onus on one group to just take accountability, do I trust that one organization has the capacity to maintain that effort? Because this is like a long-term project. I think when it comes to employers kind of stepping in, I think that would make the most sense because AI is so like narrowed and focused on the specific company and how they're implementing it and integrating it. So I think it would make the most sense there, but also like who is leading that? How are we going to make sure that's standardized? I don't have the answers to that.
So can I just, and I don't want you to feel like you have to speak for an entire generation by any means, but how does all of that feel for you in this moment? You're on the cusp of this incredible transition from ending an academic career and stepping into the workforce. There's a lot of uncertainty, even for leadership right now. There's a lot of uncertainty. What does that feel like? How do you look out over your next, even just 3 to 5 years?
I think my dad has always told me that the time after you graduate, it's either like some people are going to go linear and some people are going to go exponential. Like that's how your growth kind of goes. And the choice between linear and exponential growth is a matter of being adaptable and being flexible. So that's kind of the way I feel. It's just, I can sit here and talk about how AI kind of sucks, but at the end of the day, I'm sending the job applications out. I'm using it to help me write them sometimes. I'm using it to my benefit because that's all you can do is just like hope for the best and put your best foot forward. And I think that's the sentiment of a lot of people in Gen Z. It's just like, okay, how can I make my passion and my work ethic kind of mix to get an outcome that I can be happy with? And I think that's just the way you have to look at it, because otherwise it's just really sad to think about where things can go otherwise. Yeah.
So what does that mean? Maybe it's too early in your professional life to think about this, but have you thought about what a career looks like? I mean, there was a generation that would at one point step into a company at an entry-level position, train and work their way up step by step, and basically look at a 15, 20, 25-year career in one place. Do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't know how that would really work anymore. I've been thinking about that a lot too, because, my parents stayed in a company for a really long time, and I look at my peers now and I see a job change probably every year or so. And I know that's maybe a characteristic of your earlier years starting your career, but I don't know how that transition period will look from going from a place for every like 7 months to a year.
Yeah.
How can you make 25 years kind of work in one company now? And I think layoffs are also a really big fear in so many different sectors. It's like, can I promise you 25 years when I'm unsure if you can promise me the next year?
Yeah.
That's a tough trust to hold.
That mistrust in the employers themselves, because they're going through transformations and don't know what they'll be making in terms of decisions or in 5 years from now. Is that it?
Yeah, exactly. And you see the projected layoffs. It's insane. I'm lucky enough that I don't work in the tech sector, but I think that's probably the biggest thing on everyone's mind is the tech sector was promised as this like amazing place for job growth. So many people in my class got comp sci, data science, whatever degrees, hoping and praying for that tech job to just give them a sense of security. But now that's probably the job you want least because your likelihood of layoff is so high. So I think that mistrust is definitely part of the character or like understanding of this generation of what it means to have a job and hold a job.
I mean, say more on that. Was there this sense of there was kind of like a bait and switch? I mean, you guys were raised to be coders. The tech sector was the future. That's what you've been training for and preparing for. Do you feel like there was a bit of a betrayal there?
Yeah, I started off as a poli-sci major. I love English and reading, and I was told in high school that I would never get a job. And now it's funny that I ended up getting a data science degree because I just wanted to take some math course, and I was like, okay, this can just be fun to learn. But there was a big bait and switch because as soon as people started getting those degrees and following through, the layoffs happened. And you can't be an entry-level person looking at a company that's doing massive layoffs and say, oh, there's a place for me here. Because there probably isn't, not in the capacity that there was at least promised.
What kind of advice or support or guide, wherever it's coming from, what would make this transition feel less daunting to you? Because it's always daunting, to be clear.
Yeah.
I want you to know that. Coming out of school and moving into the workforce can always feel challenging and daunting, but there's particular challenges for you and your generation. What do you think would make it feel like less of a challenge?
I think that's a tough question because no one knows the answer. And I think if someone did, this would all feel a lot less scary because the people you look to give you guidance are just as confused about everything and anything in the same way you are. So I think more it's just about like maintaining human connection in whatever capacity is possible. Like I said, humans looking at job applications. That was such a norm and tradition that has been lost. Getting sent rejection emails, a norm that has been lost. You can send like 300 applications and maybe get 2 responses, even just a rejection. And I think
you don't even get acknowledgments to the resumes you send?
Yes.
I did not know that. That hurts my heart.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And like maintaining those small aspects of just human connection and norm and tradition throughout a process that's like rapidly from the ground up changing, I think that could be the best way to just maintain some sense of normalcy. That would just help people feel more confident. Yeah.
This is a bigger picture question, but does all of that change how you even look at the idea of work? I mean, you just talked about prioritizing human connection when I was asking you about your job, which is not something most employers will necessarily be looking at as a priority right now when they talk about this AI transformation. Do you feel like work for you and your generation just occupies a different space in your life?
100%. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if entrepreneurship rates go skyrocketing over the next couple of years, because that's really the only way you can, one, control it's so desirable to just be able to control your schedule, but also you have just control over whether or not you have a job. And I think that's something that this generation would love, is just having a sense of normalcy, a sense of stability that right now the job market can't necessarily provide in the same way that it promised.
So if you wanted people to better understand what needs to be done, or what you want to hear, what kind of support you need, what people and employers in particular might misunderstand about this next generation of workforce that they're looking to hire, what do you think that would be? What do they not get about you and your peers?
I mean, it honestly ranges from person to person.
Yeah.
But I think, again, just maintaining those norms is so important, and it helps just make that transition so much smoother. I think, in-person interviews, completely gone. I'm talking to Virtue Hire, or like a random, like an AI chatbot is interviewing me. These are small little things I think really shape the way Gen Z is going to view walking into a workforce and whether or not they feel like they're being heard and understood. So I think, again, those small moments of human connection, those small elements that maybe you didn't think would help give people the confidence to pursue a job, pursue a long-term career. I think investing in those small little things is what's going to make the difference in the way Gen Z views their own future, and also just like staying at a job for a prolonged period of time.
Okay, in the minute or so we have left, let's manifest. What's the dream job? What is it you want to put out there?
Anything that I get to learn from every day. Yeah.
Great answer.
I don't have a dream job title. I just have a dream like life where I walk in and I get to learn something every day. If that makes...
May I recommend journalism? We can talk later. Please join me in not only congratulating but thanking Diksha Shaban. Such a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Please welcome the Democrat from Maryland, Senator Angela Alsobrooks, and Semafor's Burgess Everett.
Again, Burgess Everett, Semafor's Congressional Bureau Chief, and this is Senator Angela Alsobrooks.
Yes, good morning, everyone.
She's a Democrat from Maryland, and when you are in the Senate and a quorum call starts, this is the first name you hear. You hear Miss Alsobrooks. Is that weird to hear your name like that every I don't know, 20 times a day?
No, but you know what? I do have a funny story about that. So I'm sworn in. I go to my seat, and I didn't realize, so they do call your name alphabetically. And true story, the very first time they just out the blue called my name, I stood up. And Cory Booker's like, there you are. You messed it all up. But it was the funniest thing. Like my first response, I just, heard my name.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, I've kind of gotten used to it now. But it is kind of cool to be first.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to register your vote first.
We hear it so many times a day.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you real quick. You're in the middle of these crypto negotiations, and I wanted to ask you. It seems like the sticking point is putting some of these guardrails, I guess, on ethics for the president and his family and businesses, perhaps. Where do those things stand? We've heard a lot about where Republicans think they stand. As somebody who's in the middle of this issue, what's your perception of how close you are?
Of where we are. Well, you know what, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back just one second and kind of talk about how I came to this space in the first place.
Yeah, not a lot of other Democrats are brave enough to get in there in the crypto world right now.
Well, I was the first Democrat on the banking committee to sign up for, at the time, to lead the Genius Act, which regulated stablecoin. And I have to tell you, I came to that as a result of some really great advice from my 21-year-old daughter, who, by the way, her generation is extremely interested, not only in cryptocurrency and digital assets, but quantum computing, AI. They recognize that we are in a technology revolution. And so my daughter said to me as I was coming to the Senate, she said, you're going to a place, well, first of all, she said, you have been used to operating in spaces with people who largely see the world the way that you do. And you're going to a place where they don't all see it quite the same. And then she went on to say, and this is going to be good for you. And yeah, I thought, well, this is great. And she said, you're really lucky because you'll get to hear why they don't quite see it the same. And she said, my advice to you is to go down there and take up some space. And the space that I've decided to take up is that I believe that people are very interested in growing economic opportunity to really have an on-ramp to wealth. I believe I am so tired of hearing the thought that maybe people should be content to just get by, and that we should talk about the kinds of legislation and the kinds of policy that would help people to maintain. I am truly interested in wealth, generational wealth, and that people should have the real expectation that their kids will do better than them, that their grandkids will. And so that's how I came to Genius, and here we are in Clarity. And so it's been complex. But, to my daughter's point, you go in there and if you're not at the table, you get absolutely nothing. And so I have engaged in a number of issues. One of the issues was whether or not we would interest and yield allow a bank-like product without bank-like protections. Right. And that leads me to the whole concept of ethics. It's illicit finance. It's whether or not, again, we protect consumers. And so I think we're close in a lot of ways, but I think what is recognized right now, especially when we look at the fact that the president has now earned over $2 billion off of cryptocurrency since he's been in office, the American public have the right to demand that we put in place some ethics reforms to make sure that not only the president, his family, his allies, and other elected officials should not have the opportunity, as we have seen, to profit in the way that we've seen now. So we need the guardrails in place. And, I think we're fairly close, but we're all very serious. I can tell you that although I have been supportive to this point, I absolutely will not support on the floor any legislation that does not include provisions around ethics that I think are going to be really important. So I think we're close, but we still have some work to do to make sure that not only this president, but we want to make sure that this legislation is durable, meaning that we hope that this should never happen again, what we have seen happen here. And at the same time, we have to allow innovation to grow. That's the reason it's important for me to be engaged in this, no matter how hard it's been. I think everyone's just a little unhappy right now. The folks in the crypto industry, the banking industry, nobody's gotten all that they have wanted. But I think it would be unbelievably irresponsible not to regulate an area where my constituents are saying, Marylanders have bought stable coins and bought crypto, and some of them have been scammed. And they're afraid of what this will mean for them. So they want innovation to grow, but they don't want to be scammed and defrauded and such. And they want to make sure that we are doing our job to put those guardrails in place.
And have you seen this piece of legislation on the ethics provision from your Republicans that they've supposedly reached a deal with the White House on this week? Have you been able to review that yet?
Well, we got some, some back, and I can tell you the part that's a non-starter. This DOJ, in my opinion, is completely unserious. It's really very sad. As you know, I'm a former prosecutor. I was the elected prosecutor in my jurisdiction. And I have seen, so the provision that says only the DOJ would be allowed to have the enforcement responsibility, I think is just wild and unserious and stone crazy right now, given what we have seen from them. And so it is going to be important that we have the backstop And the backstop is going to be that we must empower state level attorneys generals, if the DOJ does not do its job, to allow those attorneys generals to have the power to enforce. And so that language is language that's going to be really important to have. So again, we're kind of going back and forth, but that is, for many of us, that is an absolute. It's an absolute that we cannot completely rely on the DOJ, given what we've seen of their inability and in their unwillingness to enforce the law.
This is competing with other pieces of legislation for these last 2 weeks before the recess. Do you think it's going to happen, or do you think you've run out of runway?
I don't think we've run out of runway. I don't. I mean, I think we're in active negotiations. From my perspective, people are engaging. We're having the ongoing conversations and negotiations back and forth. But you know what? I'm an eternal optimist, and I really believe that we have to get things done. You know, I come to the Senate as the only member of my freshman class who didn't come from the House. I came as an executive, and my constituents expect me to get things done. And I'm hopeful that we are going to be able to also get this done, because I think it's extremely important. Again, that we regulate. For anyone who says, we're concerned about crypto, well, guess what? It's here. I mean, we're not talking about what is coming. We're talking about regulating what is happening right now. And I think there's an urgency around making sure that we have the guardrails today.
Some executives, people who've run states or large counties like you have, come to the Senate, and they can be pretty frustrated at how things actually work especially when you're, number 98 in seniority or wherever you've ended up.
90,
you're probably above that at this point. Have you been frustrated being in the Senate, or has it been a breath of fresh air compared to where you were
Well,
before?
let me just tell you, and this is my open secret, so if it gets out, I'll know this room told it. I'm having more fun than I deserve. I'm almost ashamed to say that because I think people come and they say, oh my God, how was the Senate? And I think they expect me to say it was horrible. I'm in the right place at the right time at a very complex and complicated point in our country's history. And I am so grateful that I am there and having the opportunity, I think, to be a part of moving our country forward at some point. So I have actually enjoyed, I just love the time that I've had there. I've found it, to a lot of people's surprise, to be extremely collegial. That has really surprised me in a lot of ways. I have really found it to be very collegial. I was able to hear Senator Marshall talk a moment ago about the bipartisan breakfast he attends. I attend. There's a bipartisan Bible study that happens on Thursdays also.
Oh, yeah.
And so those kinds of
the leader
opportunities.
will come to. Some leader
Yeah,
comes
the leader
there
comes to.
Yeah.
I'm there with Tim Scott and Gillibrand and others, but it's just a wonderful opportunity for us to come together. Now, I have to tell you, a couple of days after I was sworn in, it snowed. And this is the moment where I looked outside my blinds and realized the difference between being an executive and a senator.
Yeah.
When I looked outside and said, somebody's going to clear that snow.
Yeah.
And guess who it won't be this time?
Yeah, it wasn't your responsibility.
Right, exactly. Today it is not my responsibility. And so it's a little different. Something to love about both jobs, but I'm really enjoying the work that I'm doing now in the Senate.
A lot of the government around here just leaves the snow until it melts, though. Maybe not Prince George's County.
No, we can't do that. We can't do that.
It must have been frustrating, though, for you. You come in, and President Trump's sworn in, and the first target and order of business is cutting federal jobs. And I don't need to tell you how important those jobs are for Maryland. What's the state of Maryland's economy right now? I mean, is it still struggling? Are you seeing some recovery? Where are things at?
Well, you know what? It's something more than frustrating. It made me irate to see the way that federal employees were treated. And I had an opportunity to actually confront Russell Vought regarding what was done to federal employees. And, for those who didn't hear his quote, he said that it was his intention to make sure that federal employees felt traumatized and that they would be increasingly regarded as the villains. And he said that that was his objective. And I think he accomplished that in that he managed not only to really treat so poorly our federal employees who are patriots. They've worked, many of them, for decades in this government. They didn't care whether the president was a Republican or a Democrat. They were here to serve the people. And so decimating jobs meant that it not only harmed our employees, but guess what else it harmed? Our country. And if we don't believe it, look at what's happening. Cyclospora, all of these resurgences of foodborne illnesses. We've seen now measles, the resurgence of measles. He has now replaced and fired so many of our experts throughout our government, and it's hurting the American people right now. But in terms of Maryland's economy, we've also seen a real hit to our economy. We've seen a hit to so many families, and that's the most important part, is that our families have suffered, and they have suffered not only as a result of the job losses, but so many other really poorly thought out and cruel things that were done. We've seen the tariffs, the impact of that on small businesses is profound. We've seen that also impact our economy. And so what I really believe is that the average hardworking person in our country right now is really bearing the brunt of so many of the decisions that have been made. They have done nothing whatsoever to alleviate the stress and strain that families have experienced with the escalating grocery costs and gas and utilities. And so we've seen the cost of health care. And so when we talk about, it's not just federal employees, it's just Americans who have suffered beneath the decisions of this administration. And it has, as a person who I grew up in a family, my father was a car salesman. Mother is a receptionist. So I grew up in a working class family. And so I just watching working class people suffer needlessly as a result of the decisions of this administration and the great smash and grab where they've gotten rich is made me really irate. And we're working hard to make sure that we win in the midterms and that we see some changes that will allow us to focus again on helping families to make it in our country.
And I believe you're jumping into the midterms. You're going down to Georgia tomorrow, is that right? To campaign for Ossoff?
Ossoff, yeah. So I'll be in Georgia this weekend, and I'm going to be all over the country working to get Democrats elected. So not just Ossoff. I'm going to be in Mississippi. I'm going to be in Ohio. I'm going to be in North Carolina. So I'm going to really, get out there and pound the pavement and do what I can to try to get our country moving in a different direction.
Is the Democratic brand still struggling nationally? Because the party did lose some of these working class voters you're talking about to Trump and the Republicans. Where do things stand right now?
And you know what? And I think we ought to pay attention to that. I really do. I think we ought to pay attention to the people that were alienated from our party. And I have been really clear about the fact that I think, and I think this, sometimes we've been guilty of it, sometimes the other side. But, I've often said, I think we talk a lot about loving and caring for poor people. And in my opinion, we apparently don't know very many of them. Because if we did, I think sometimes we'd be talking in totally different terms about what is needed, and that's when for example, again, it is the case that people don't want to live on the margins. They want us to talk to them about what the real opportunities are for them to thrive, to buy homes. That's why the road to housing was so important. The average age of a first-time home buyer in our country now is 40 years old. My parents bought their first home at 25, 26. They married at 21 and 22. Now the average age is 40 years old for a first-time home buyer. You think about so many of the struggles that people have, and I think rightfully so, that we have a job to do to really listen to the people and to find ways to address them. And I'll say this also, and this is just true in our country. Unfortunately, to me, the only people who really get the help they need are the very poor and the very rich. The people right in the middle are the ones who we have totally missed in so many instances. So I think we have work to do, even in our party, to make sure that we are really addressing that. And that's why I'm so glad that I'm in the Senate. And there are a number of us who agree that we must have an agenda that also addresses that middle.
And we have just enough time for me to ask you a challenging question,
Yes.
I hope. Are you going to endorse in the Michigan Senate race? This is one of the last big primaries your party has, and it's splitting folks along a lot of these lines that you just discussed. Do you have a favored candidate
I think
there?
Michiganders can handle what is happening in Michigan and can decide who their nominee is. And then whoever the nominee is, I'm going full throttle to get that person elected.
Okay. Senator Also Brooks, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Please welcome Alexa Goldberg of Valence, Holly Courtright of Navy Federal Credit Union, and Semafor's Andrew Friedman.
Well, hello again, everybody. It's been a good day of programming so far. Excited to jump in here today. AI is reshaping the workplace at a truly incredible pace right now, but the conversation is no longer just about the technology itself. It's about people, it's about how leaders build trust and help employees adapt and ensure AI enhances the employee experience. We're going to talk about that today in our session. I'm joined by Alexa Goldberg, Director of Partnerships and Content at Valence, and Holly Courtright, CHRO at Navy Federal Credit Union. Thank you both for being here. Together, you both bring a very deep experience helping organizations navigate workforce transformation and the future of leadership. So thanks again for being here. Let's jump in. Holly, let's start with you here. There's a lot of excitement and anxiety around AI in the workplace. At a high level, though, is AI alienating today's workforce, or do you think it's actually bringing people in?
I think it's doing both, depending on the culture of your organization, the leadership. We heard earlier today already, obviously, employees and team members have concerns about their job. They have concerns about layoffs. They have concerns about their future. I think they have concerns about how fast they can learn new skills and move forward with the technology. So I think that points to the need for a culture of trust and of communication from leaders and involvement. Sure. And making all of our team members part of this transformation, not something that's happening to them. I think there is also excitement, though. On the front lines, there's so many tools now that team members can leverage. We have our customer service reps that serve our military members with their financials, and they now have tools they can do simulations on when they join us, and they can have learning and growth opportunities and receive feedback before they ever have to get on the phone. And they have tools when they're on the phone that give them personalized insights that they can share with members that help them do their jobs even better. So I think it's beholden on all of us from a leadership standpoint to continuously communicate, we have made a commitment as an organization to help people reskill and upskill so they will have jobs for the future. But there's a lot going on in society that people hear, and they see and hear things in the news. And so how do we help people build the skills they need to take advantage of AI? And how do we support the workforce and continue to hire and develop talent? You heard from our graduate about the challenges there. We can't stop hiring people. We have to leverage it in the right ways and build the trust so that people can embrace it.
Absolutely. That really sets the stage, because how employees experience AI often starts with how leaders introduce it. We've heard that theme today as well. Alexa, from your perspective, what's the biggest mistake you see leaders making when they introduce AI into their organizations for the first time?
Yeah, I think the biggest mistake that we see with the work we do at Valence, and for those who don't know, Valence is an AI coaching platform that really enables a new approach to performance, is that organizations are just introducing AI and mandating the use of AI for the sake of using AI, rather than approaching it from the perspective of what is a problem I'm trying to solve, or like Holly was saying, what is a capability I'm trying to build in my workforce, and how can I use this technology to do that in a way I've never been able to before. And so as an example, one of the things a lot of our clients come to us with at Valence is, I have this culture that's too nice. We talked a lot about culture today. And my leaders don't know how to give critical feedback, or they don't know how to have a difficult conversation. And so when we design Nadia, one of the things we do is we help leaders, practice giving that more critical feedback, think a little bit more deeply about what they're saying and how they're delivering it. And by doing that, we're really solving a problem that leaders have had for a really long time, rather than asking them to learn something net new. And I think when you frame rolling out these tools in that way, you're allowing people to see a lot more value out of it, rather than maybe be fearful of it or have anxiety about it.
Absolutely. So if those are some of the common missteps, let's talk about what separates organizations that are navigating this successfully and those that aren't. Holly, how can leaders avoid some of these pitfalls, and what separates organizations that are getting this right from those that you've seen that are struggling in it?
Absolutely. And listen, we are all on a journey with this. I don't think any organization has done this perfectly.
Sure.
Okay. And there are so many unknowns that we're going to figure out along the journey. And so what we've tried to do is really tie it into our mission and how it can help serve our membership and how it can help individuals do work that is most valuable to them. I think one of our learnings has been, even though we've been communicating a lot, we need our frontline leaders to be able to translate what we're communicating at a higher level into what it means in day-to-day jobs, right? And that's hard to do in a large organization, but we have built some programs and some pilots to work with actual team members on how their jobs are going to change in the future. So instead of saying, you have this new job because technology has eliminated tasks, we're actually working with them to redesign their jobs because, by the way, they are the experts in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And the technology and the processes change and add value. So what does that new job look like? And we just did this early on, our first pilot with our documentation specialists. Obviously, that job is changing massively as we go forward with AI. But by the way, there's ways you need to set up data and documents for AI to make it effective. So they're critical in the future. And we're designing it with them and making them a part of it. I also think another key thing is you have to create the time and bandwidth for people to learn and grow and experiment. And sometimes people are scared of experimenting because they might get something wrong. And that's a culture dynamic and a trust and a leadership aspect. So how do you create that bandwidth, which is hard when you might be a member service rep on the phone all day? You have to make a commitment as an organization to create that bandwidth so they can try out things, they can experiment, they see how it works in their day-to-day, and they have a supportive coaching background that's going to help them continue to learn and grow. I think the pitfalls are when it's forced on them, which was mentioned. Yeah. The technology is forced on them and they're like, it has nothing to do with my job or helping me. When it is mandated, and when leaders aren't doing the same learning journey that everyone else. So leaders talk about it, but what are they actually doing with AI as a role model to improve how they're operating? So those are some of the things that we're working on. We also have an AI week every 6 months where we have a whole week and we try and cancel as many meetings as possible. And people get to come into labs and experiment and learn the stories of the successes they're seeing and have an opportunity to really be part of this revolution.
Amazing. Alexa, to close out today, let's talk a little bit about what success actually looks like. Can you share an example of what happens when a company really gets this right and where you see this heading over the next few years?
Yeah, well, I'll pick up on a thread that Holly just mentioned, which is the idea of creating bandwidth. And we actually hosted a CHRO roundtable last week, and one of our partners said something that really resonated with me, which is you have to build capacity before you can build capability.
Sure.
And I think that is such a powerful framework for thinking through how to measure success of these technologies. So to give you a specific example from one of our clients, we've been working with Delta Airlines for a few years now. And the problem they originally came to us with was we have a performance process that's really complex, it's really time intensive, and our managers have these large spans of control such that it's really not efficient for them to get through this process. And so when we were able to, implement Nadia and redesign their process with Nadia, the first thing we saw was that capacity creation. So we were able to save these managers about 25 to 30 hours on average per review cycle. But what we also saw, which was really exciting, is that the employees were saying, not only am I getting more feedback, but I'm also getting higher quality feedback. And so you see that sort of balance between creating capacity to then create capability. And so my hope for the future is as these conversations evolve, I think a lot of organizations are still just thinking about adoption and are thinking about capacity, and these tools have the power to do that. But I want the conversation and hope the conversation will move to what capabilities can we build? Because I think that's where the opportunity really lies.
Fantastic. Well, Alexa, Holly, thank you so much for being here with us today for Semafor.
Yeah, thank you.
Please welcome Claire McIntyre of Sam's Club and PBS NewsHour's Amna Nawaz.
Hi, nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. Such a privilege to be here with you all this morning.
Excellent. Let's jump right in because you are in a very specific business in terms of our slate of guests today. It's wholesale retail, right? Yep. So your business touches tens of millions of Americans every single day in every single community across the country. When we have these conversations around AI and how it's being implemented, how do you look at that transformation for you in terms of how your team and your associates can use it to better that customer experience?
We see it probably less as a transformation and more of an evolution. So at Walmart Inc. and Sam's Club, we start with the principle of people-led, tech-powered. So we're always looking at how do we take the friction out of work and how do we actually make the jobs of the humans easier. And if you think, are many of you Sam's Club members? Has anyone been to? Yay! Right? So you know that our business is actually about.
I like that you're getting more people to sign up in
the
room before we leave to see
you can meet us at the back. Yeah, we're doing a special deal today. But you will know that our job actually is to service members. So our frontline associates service the members. And actually, our clubs play a big part in the community. So that's something that we really prize and that we really want to make sure that all of the technological advances, and I broaden it from not just AI to tech. I think if you think about it a bit broader, it becomes a little bit less scary, but actually it's those things that we start to leverage. So an example being, we have this touring agent. Sounds internally we call it Optimus Shine. Nobody else likes it. I love it. So they told me not to say it, so I'm sorry. But we have this touring agent. So in your pocket, all of our associates use devices. And what they have is they can go into any club and they can take pictures of things. And it will give them updates on how are we doing against the standards. So for example, the apple turnovers, which are on special just now that are delicious. Are we stacking them high enough? Are they brown enough? Are they to the standards and processes we require? And if they're not, what are the questions you should then be asking the associate and what is the guidance? That's super cool and important. Yeah. Because then what that does is you and I are having a human-to-human exchange about the work and the process. Like things like that is where we're really doubling down, taking the friction out, making jobs easier, and helping leaders be better, stronger leaders.
Apple turnovers do sound delicious.
They are very delicious.
There's also the scan and go technology. Tell us what that has changed about how you work.
So Scan and Go is a technology where on your phone and your app, you actually scan the items that you put in your basket. It then totals it all up and you can pay on your phone. So you just slide, you pay, and then you go through our exit tech. So those of you that have been to Sam's Club, the big blue,
like the arches you walk through.
Yes. Yeah. That automatically, the AI tech reads that and says that you have paid for everything in your basket. And it means that the exit person that you meet is not there as the guardian of our items. They're actually there to thank you for being a member and to hope that you got everything you needed in Sam's Club. So we're really using it to make sure that there's much more human-to-human connection. What I love about Scan and Go as a member, it doesn't matter how busy the club is. It really doesn't matter because you're shopping on your own time and your own terms. I moved into my home in Bentonville two Christmases ago, and I went in shopping on Christmas Eve, and usually that's a horrendous time. The club was so busy. It was wall to wall, and I was just zipping around, doing my thing, getting in, get what I needed and get out. So we can meet members where they are. So if you want to engage, we have amazing associates that will engage with you. And if you just want to go shopping and keep your head down, you can do that too.
So on this issue that the fear, the anxiety, obviously workers worried about displacement, worried about disruption. I'm curious, the scan and go technology specifically, like how has that not disrupted or displaced the workforce? Because previously you had someone there who had to check all the receipts, right? If that check is no longer needed, does that mean you have fewer people doing that job?
Actually, no. What we have is more people in other areas of the club. So what it's gone from is me standing and checking item by item and marking it off and then it feeling like it's a control mechanism. We still have people at the exit technology and they're there engaging with you and they're checking in more, did you get everything you need and thank you for being a member. And then we have more members in the club so that if you need some help and assistance, that there's more people there. I was in a club a couple of weeks ago with one of my team. So I love to walk the clubs and make sure every HR person knows how to walk a club and go in and engage. So I took one of my newer team members. He was so cute. He's like, I've downloaded the tech on the app, let's walk the club. And this member saw we were wearing our badge. And she came up and she said, do you have any jalapenos? And I was like, I don't know. But Kevin, he's like, allow me, pulls the app out. Please hold. So I started talking to the member. Kevin runs over to the produce aisle. He's so proud of himself at this point, everyone. He's like, I know where they should be. I know what's happening. And we had to get another associate involved because HR people don't really know the club as well. And we didn't actually have the kind that the member was looking for, but we could offer an alternative. Meanwhile, I'm having this conversation with this member to say, so are you going to stuff them with cheese? What are you going to do? Is there bacon involved? Because they were hosting a party. And we ended up having a really great conversation and she was telling me about the watermelons and different things and she told me about the leaders in the club. So my point in that is the tech that we are using is actually to enable better human-to-human interactions. And that member didn't really care that we knew on the phone the items. She was more engaged with us and had a better experience with us.
So there's empowering your associates, your team with the tech to better serve the customers who are still, I mean, this is people coming into your clubs, right?
Yes.
They're looking for a community and a human connection experience anyway. But then we're seeing all these other trends around how tech is changing the retail experience writ large, right? I remember at the end of last year, there were all these articles written about how for Christmas shopping, people were now relying on like chatbots to just say, what do I need to buy? And where can I buy it? And what's the best price? And really leaning more into AI and technology to kind of do the shopping for them. Are you seeing that on your end in terms of how the customers are engaging with the tech in the club or not coming in as much?
We're actually seeing it as more of an omni experience. So our e-com business has grown significantly as well. So we're seeing we are now leaning in to meet the member where they are and where do they want to start their shopping journey. Many of them actually start online and then they transfer into the club. Many of our members actually don't really live near a club and they want to have the options of our items delivered to them, which is fantastic. So we really focus on how do we meet them where they are and how do we use the technology to make their lives easier.
Your involvement in your approach to sort of upskilling your workers is slightly different than some of the other approaches we've talked about today, which is that you're investing in local nonprofits, in addition to your own training and tech for things you're putting into your team's hands, but you're investing into existing groups in the communities that you're located and in which you serve your customers. Why that approach? Tell us more about that.
We feel that we are part of the communities that we operate in. We employ a lot of people in America, a lot. And everybody here probably knows someone who works or has worked for Walmart, Inc. or Sam's Club at some point. And that's a responsibility. And we thrive in communities because of the community relationships. And that's something that we really want to make sure that we do more of and continue to invest. And we have members who come to our club every single day just to walk. I was in a club a few weeks ago and I met this amazing gentleman and he was a retired veteran and he was marching. I thought there was something, like he was marching around the club and I was like, is everything okay, sir? Are you finding everything you need? And he said, yeah, I'm on mile 2. And so he was like, I come here every single day to do my miles. It's clean, it's safe, people know where I am and I can get potato salad on the way home. So that's the kind of role that we have in communities, and that's why we have to continue to invest in communities. And at Walmart Inc., we're really committed to continuing to advance our frontline associates. We have a program called Live Better You, where our frontline associates, in fact, all of our associates, but my heart's with the frontline on this one, where they can get a college education for no fees, no debts. So you graduate, you get your education, no debt. I think that's so powerful. And how we've used AI to further enable that, we've created this interview coach. So think about it. You've just got your new degree. It's in a topic that you've studied for, you've probably got no experience in. How do you start to get into the job market? How do you start to get the reps in you need to do a really good interview? This coach, and it's phenomenally good, it looks like a human, so it's a female. It will interview you. It interviews the associate, and it gives real-time feedback on your answer. So did you use a STAR model? Was the example strong enough? Your cadence, were you speaking too quickly? Were you too slow? So it gives you all of the were you slouching? Were you leaning in? It gives you all of this amazing rich feedback, which builds the confidence as you start to go into more environments where you're going to be asked to be interviewed more. Why is that important? Even the best of us, when you interview someone for a mock interview or a practice, you're judging. You can't help it, right? You're like, that was good, that was bad. Claire does this, Claire does that. And you carry that away with you. This coach is assessing. There's zero judgment. Nobody sees it. Nobody's giving you a grade on it. But you get the rich, rich feedback in a safe environment that you can then take on to do the next thing. And like, that's the kind of examples I love about how we can use AI to further advance people.
I'm not sure if you heard the earlier conversation I had with the recent grad who talked about what her generation and Gen Z are seeking in their entry-level positions and the places that they want to grow a career. But it was this idea of more human connection. Yeah. There was frustration around the fact that their resumes go into an AI bot that sorts through for keywords, right? That I don't know that a chatbot coach would be something they want. They might want a human to be doing that. There's a tension there, right, around some of the frustration and the uncertainty and the fear in this incoming workforce generation. As someone responsible for bringing in that next generation, training them up, wanting to keep them, how do you look at that?
I think, and we were chatting in the back, actually, she's phenomenal. And we were having...
Did you get her resume?
I did, actually. Don't judge me. You all wanted to. So it's very interesting. We are people-led, tech-powered. That's who we are as an enterprise. That's what we start from, and it's how we lead every single conversation on this. A lot of the work I've been doing at Sam's Club is using technology to drive better human-to-human connections. So we just introduced a new tech that's on all of our leadership's apps and tools. It prompts and it forces a conversation, a human-to-human conversation that's quarterly feedback and also what we call moments that matter. We know that within the first 90 days, there's a higher risk of people falling out. And that's, we're trying to control our turnover. These tools and techniques will say, hey, it's day 5, go speak to Claire and make sure she's feeling comfortable and her onboarding buddies helped her. Day 31, you should be checking in with Claire on how is she finding the commute? Like, what are the relevant prompts that you can have conversations? Then the quarterly feedback is, hey, how's she doing? Is she doing well against all of the dimensions that matter? That level of connectedness and human-to-human conversation is actually what everybody's seeking. It's not, yes, I hear it and I recognize in this new generation, but humans are actually really craving it. And the tech we've rolled out, we're getting some great feedback. And I was speaking to a club manager and he actually said to me, when you rolled this out, I hated it. And I was like, oh, tell me more. Because you were telling me what to do and when to do it. Now I love this tech because you're telling me what to do and when to do it. So for him, it was like, I know I should be having these conversations, but sometimes I don't know where to start. And because we're given all of the prompts and the guidance, it then has become a very natural human-to-human connection. And we're seeing such great results and kind of connection from that, because this all only works if the human's at the center. This all only works if we are continuing to use it to elevate and to have deeper human-to-human connections. I was at a dinner last night with some people in here, and I actually left feeling quite hopeful. And I know we've talked a lot today about all the reasons AI can be a detriment to humans and workforce. But what if? What if we actually look at it through the lens that technology and AI can actually expand your work span, your health span? What if we use it for good? I think that right now this is a leadership moment. It's not a tech moment. The tech is only as this version today is the best version of, or the worst version of it you're ever going to use. That's not going to change. But the leadership, that's going to endure. And our leaders need to step up and step in to lead, to teach, and to learn. And if we make the choices that that's what we want to do with AI, I really think that we could change the narrative on this. And I just don't want people to continue to be scared. I want them to think about, let's broaden the aperture. Let's look at it as tech, and let's look at how do we make things better for the humans, people-led, tech-powered, taking friction out.
You can see her in the back to sign up for your membership
Yes.
after this. Please join me in thanking Claire McIntyre.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, such a pleasure. Thank you.
Please welcome Amanda Carroll of Gensler.
So nice to see you here. So a little bit of foundation setting. Gensler works with a range of different companies and clients, right? Everyone from JP Morgan Chase to Google to IBM and TikTok. A range also of cultures, I would say, across the companies. And this conversation around AI and integration often goes into concerns about how disconnected we are, right? How this isolates us further and pulls us apart. From your perspective and the work that you do, is that what you've seen? Tell us a little bit more about that.
No, actually, in our research, so Gensler operates in globally, and we just completed research in our 2026 workplace survey. We found the exact opposite. We found that AI super users were more inclined to participate in socialization and learning and in collaboration than their counterparts who hadn't adopted AI. And that signal, be it like a 2-point gain or a 5-point gain, not radical, but enough, says a lot because it's across, let's say, 16,000 respondents. And in this short window that we were talking about, the adoption of AI for only the last few years, to see that movement to us is telling us that there's actually some space that's being created for a more human-focused engagement when in the office. And the fact that the people are starting to opt in to more of those ways to kind of, I think, build the community or some of the, address some of the anxieties that have been spoken about earlier this morning, is really helpful in how you start to think about shaping a conversation around what workplace is best for your organization. And it's one of the ways that we use an outside sort of perspective to help ground what we're thinking about as the future, because wherever you go, geography or culture, or whatever difference we're talking about across an organization and their core objectives, ultimately each one of them has a very specific way with which they want to host an experience. And a lot of people have been talking today about that colleague that they're concerned for or that they're trying to anticipate solving for. And that manifestation of that culture comes forward in that place more so than anywhere else. It comes through in person-to-person interactions or customer interactions, but really where it is done at scale and in aggregate is in a workplace experience. So there's a lot of power around how you can study and deepen your understanding of the workforce and then take that knowledge and put it into action in the way that you solve for their experience. And I think some of the things that Katie said this morning were a great opening to that. Just to double click a little bit into what she had mentioned around one of the transformation experiences that they are using as a module for a three-week sort of immersive deep dive in trying to move a workforce into a different way of thinking about adopting AI.
Like an internal training camp, essentially. Right?
Yeah. And so can you imagine what that training camp looks like? It's for a multi-week period. Like what other meeting type would typically exist in your sort of monthly profile of meetings that's a 3-week immersion? Okay, and then what space type actually could support that? Probably not one that exists today, right? At least not one that's also able to address some of the angst or anxiety that these individuals are feeling around maybe losing their job title that they had worked so hard to, get to, or working with new colleagues they've never worked with before.
Yeah.
And some of the things that need to be more measured in the way that you're solving for something that's so critical to the way you're thinking about transforming your business. And so that's sort of the relationship that we're seeing with optimism around how this really radical influence of AI is creating incredible focus and attention around how to solve for a human-centric experience. And I think over the next decade, it's going to be really exciting work that we're doing as an organization and more deeply focused on enriching individuals.
I want to talk more about the physical transformation piece of all of this in a moment, but you mentioned a phrase earlier I want to make sure we define here, which was these AI super users or power users, because the results of the survey were so interesting. This was your global workplace study. It involved more than 16,400 office workers across 16 countries. You identified 30% of those as what you call these super users, AI power users. What does that mean? What's changed about the way that they work that makes them member of that category?
The way that they're more broadly characterized is that they're using AI both in their personal life and in their professional life. So it's somebody who is, I would say like my husband, way ahead of the curve and finds the ability to experiment and work differently, invigorating, as opposed to a cause for concern or a way to maybe challenge oneself about how valuable you are to the organization. And those super users are the ones that are signaling other things that go beyond socialization and learning that I was talking about and collaborating. They're also 3 times more likely to report that they work for an innovative company. So that's a really, I think, important tie to call out, just because they're saying that the place where they're working is adopting AI in a new way that's enabling them to feel like their organization is supporting the way they want to in their personal life, consume experiences, be successful, and have more authorship around the way that they go through their day.
They feel more empowered by the technology, in other words. So how does all that translate to the physical space?
Well, interestingly, also in the survey, what we found was that the workplace itself has not actually changed that much. For those who spend time in this arena, I think it's kind of easy to rationalize. It takes a long time to build space. And even if it's a single floor in an office building, it could be, a year from end to end. For bigger headquarters experiences that are purpose-built, it could be 7 years. So we're seeing that this sort of current has a wave to it. And the more progressive individuals were probably many of the participants that have been a part of this conference, but there's many companies who are not there yet, or they're not seeing it in the way that they're connecting their workforce strategy to their real estate strategy. The more transformative organizations we've been partnering with in that way. And a lot of what we're solving for is resiliency. I mean, no one has a crystal ball as to how all of the different job profiles will evolve. So what we're going back to are basic human truths around what makes you feel welcome, what is a space that feels inclusive, what's a space that feels like it can accommodate a diversity of needs, what's a space that makes you feel productive. And depending on the different types of expectations that our individuals are bringing to space, we're able to start to create a physical profile for them. In simplest terms, I've said we've kind of gone from 1D to 4D in the way we're designing. So to take you on that journey, what that means in our world is we've gone from just designing space to a program where we identify a certain number of spaces you need based on a certain number of people. And those spaces are also characterized by the tools and the technology and resources that you can access in them. And historically, we'd always have forecasted head count. We're going to grow by this much quarter over quarter, and that then gives us sort of capacity. That model is, I don't know that the world will ever be that simple again in the world of design. Now we're going to a place where there's work typologies. So we're looking at each each department within each business unit and saying, this is the nature of the way these people are engaging. This is when they are saying that they feel most supported. This is what they're requesting more of. So they get their own profile that's different. It does not about who they report up to or what they actually do. It's about how they interact with each other when they're on site.
So the physical space would match the way in which that team is working.
So the proportions of it, the availability of the resources, and the frequency of that use.
Yeah.
And then you start to look at, on top of that, the personas. So for us, I think that was mentioned earlier as well, the personas are actually self-identified, which is really liberating. Not all organizations are doing this yet, but those that are, we're seeing that their individual is saying, hey, when I come on site, I want to be a roamer. I want to be able to move anywhere throughout the space and self-select depending on my day. Or I'm a nester. I want to go into a quiet corner and not be bothered because I'm doing heads down work and I don't need to be stimulated by the office. I just need a place to go to be productive and everything in between. When you add in those personas to the work typologies, you start to get a more sophisticated view of the landscape that you're managing, which is the people and their expectations for the business performance against the place. And then when you add in the fourth dimension, which is data, you really can start to model possible futures. And so we're going in our studies well beyond just looking at badge swipe data. We're looking at room utilization data. We're looking at food consumption data, fitness participation data, service and help desk ticket data. And we're able to simulate that into a dashboard that allows for us to really, I say, almost measure the weather. Like, what's it look like today? Are we going to have some kind of issue to deal with on the peak day if everybody were to turn up in that group or in that assigned location, and help forecast what the future could look like to give our clients more of a sense of sort of their outer boundaries of what they can do with the space they have today, and then start to think about how to build in other ways to have a future adaptability as they start to see the signals from the individuals.
I mean, the choices organizations have to make about where to put those investments and how to make the decisions now for the way that their workforce will be working in the future has to be a major challenge. But one of the parts that really struck me from the survey was this finding about how employees have been making the spaces that they currently have work for them. This idea of hacking their workspace, because you found in your survey 2/3 of employees reported hacking the space to make it work. What are people doing?
Oh, everything.
What does that involve?
I mean, who in this room didn't find more about themselves and how they work best after going through the pandemic? It's literally a universal truth. And I loved it personally because it meant that people really woke up to what great looks like, right? And so the way that people are adapting space in many cases is really dependent upon how they want to personalize that experience that they figured out works best for them. So it could be lighting levels, it could be, which people have learned how to override, it could be personalization, even though there's no space for it. They figure out a way to bring the things that make them feel like I belong or I have my spot here for me or my team. We would call it workarounds. There's workarounds and then there's hacks. So the hacks generally are signals of culture. The workarounds are signals of inefficiency. And so those two combinations, I think, for us are great signals as to whether or not the space is working. So we pay close attention in our post-occupancy evaluations to see what type of alternative environments people are curating. But in some great examples, like with work we've done with Google, the entire premise for the design is limitless, right? It is meant to be absolutely adapted by the individuals using the space to create the highest and best use of the physical realm. And so every time I go back to it, it looks different. And that is the exact intention. And that gives a lot of freedom in terms of how to sort of navigate the future because it's more addressable by the manager, let's say, who wants to reorganize for his team. But it also gives us a physical signal as to what's working in a new way because you're not seeing, it doesn't allow for the frustrations that could be left on the side.
Yeah. My favorite story about a workspace hack was someone who raised his standing desk to the highest level and then created a kind of cozy cave underneath it in which to work, because that was the way in which he preferred to work.
They probably need nap pods.
Before we go, I want to ask you, because you flicked at this idea a little bit about how much the pandemic changed in which the way we work. So what does all of this mean for CEOs and leaders pushing for more return to work attendance?
I think it means that you have to have deeper conviction, and that is not just around the business, but around what the creative manifestation of that business vision looks like when you go forward in space. We've had the pleasure of working with IBM really closely over the years, for me, almost 20 years. And the space that they just took in New York is a really, I think, perfect example of how, when you have executive leadership that has a really clear premise for where the business is going, and there's a clear call to action, and you build that thing, they will come. That location that we built for them has been extraordinary in response, and I think that the best way to judge a space is just through people voting with their feet. It's the truest measure, and that clarity and creative vision really translated so well that we ended up having to design an additional floor to house global response, not just local response. And I think that that would be the sort of truest way to sum it up.
Amanda Carroll of Gensler, thank you so much for being here today. Please join me in thanking her.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Joining Amna on stage, Claire Casey of AARP Foundation and Mary Morland of Abbott.
Claire and Mary, thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here.
So a lot of the focus today has been on sort of the next generation of the workforce coming in, how younger employees are looking at the challenges and AI integration, how leadership is looking at it. When you look at our inevitable AI economy in whatever way it's going to take shape, Claire, and you look at the role of older Americans, how do you look at the challenges they face? Are they at a disadvantage?
Yeah, they absolutely are. Just to explain to everyone, AARP Foundation is the philanthropic affiliate of AARP, and our focus is on reducing poverty and building opportunity for lower income older people in this country, 50 plus. And what we've found in the labor market today is a really troubling reality, not just for them, I think, but also for the health of our economy, our society, our communities and families. Older workers today already, pre-AI, are only 1 in 3 low-income older workers will make it through their 50s continuously employed. If they have to leave a job for caregiving, because their car broke down, whatever reason, they're twice as likely to end up in the long term unemployed. 1 in 10 will get a job that pays the same as the one they lost or more. So they're already in a very difficult position. And then we have this massive technological change that none of us know exactly how it's going to play out. But what we do know is it's going to require a lot of change, a lot of reskilling, a lot of upskilling, and we need to make sure that that is available to all workers, and sort of unpack our biases against who's worth training, who gives us a good ROI, because older workers do.
So Mary, weigh in on that. How do you look at that from your perspective when you look at mid-career, late career employees? What kind of supports and developments should employers be providing? And more importantly, are they incentivized to do so?
So Abbott is a health technology company. We have about 122,000 employees in 160 countries around the world. So very diverse workforce, but very complicated work across many different businesses. One of the most important aspects of our business and of the opportunities we offer to employees is to ensure that they're able to develop their careers and to really reach their full potential. And that's true straight out of college, but that's also true at all points in their career. So, for example, with AI, we actually did something we've done very rarely in the past. We started by training our most senior leaders, and we cascaded AI training throughout the organization that way, with the idea that if a manager is willing to use AI, then their team will see it as something that they not only could use, but should use. And so that has been very effective in getting adherence and adoption for our workers. But there are workers that don't need to have AI as well. And so we're really careful to say, it's not for everyone, it's not peanut butter, but those roles that can use it, and makes you have you do your work more efficiently, more effectively, and for many people, more fun.
And does that mean different kinds and different approaches to the training for older workers, for management level, as it does for entry level?
Yes, and for the types of workers as well.
Yeah. So, Claire, this idea we've talked about again and again about the infrastructure of the workforce changing. There's more and more roles around gig work, contract work without the kind of benefits that people earlier in their career may have seen in years past. When you look at your membership in AARP, what does that mean for how they're viewing the idea of a career, what that trajectory looks like as they close out their professional chapters?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at 50, we're not closing. Right. And that's one of the things that we want to really challenge. Most people expect to work, the majority of Americans expect to work past 65. So at 50, you're looking at 20 years in front of you. And that means you're going to have to reskill or shift or change careers, change jobs, probably several times still in the remainder of your career.
Over those last 20 years.
But the quality of jobs has eroded, right? The two fastest growing job categories for lower income workers, gig driver, home health aide. Neither one gives you real control of like a solid schedule, benefits, all the things that would enable you not only to have sort of a dignified life today where you can afford the basic essentials of life, but also save for your future. So yeah, I think it is. It's a really challenging moment. We don't have all the answers, but I actually think it's not as complicated as we want to believe.
Why do you say that?
Because when we design everything specific to a group, I think we fail to tackle the easy thing, which is don't explicitly exclude, which we do. Many programs have age limits on them. Don't implicitly exclude by implying who should be in a program. As an example, apprenticeships. Fabulous, proven source of workforce development. 3% of apprentices in this country are over 40. Why is that, right? Like, think about who you would imagine if you looked in the dictionary for the picture next to apprentice. I can guarantee it's not someone with even my kind of like salt and pepper hair. And so we have a lot of ideas about who merits opportunity, who's worth training. I think that the answers start by making it sure that everyone is included.
So when you hear Mary talk about the kind of training they're rolling out, different levels, different approaches for different parts of the workforce, are you seeing enough of that?
Absolutely not. I mean, I think great companies are doing that, but what we know across the economy, you are half as likely over 40 to be invited into training by your employer than if you were under 40. So there is a real gap today that we need to address. And that's low-hanging fruit, and we can do that.
There are generational challenges here that I want to kind of zero in on too, because you've talked specifically about Gen Xers, right, who are at this critical tipping point. You've written about this in detail recently, called them the most indebted group of Americans. They have the highest student loan balances. They're facing all the financial pressures of a sandwich generation, right? Caring for children and aging parents as well. From an employer's perspective, How do you look at the challenges they face? How do you look at the level of support that they need in a specific way for what they're facing?
So I'm a Gen Xer. I also like to say that we had student loan debt, but we didn't know that we could talk about it. And so, and so one of the programs that we're particularly proud of at Abbott is our Freedom to Save program, which we designed in 2018. And has now become part of the Safety Act. But the idea is that if you're paying down student loan debt for yourself or your children, you don't have to contribute to your 401k. We will match within the 401k as if that debt was being paid into the plan like a contribution. So that has helped many people within our organization to overcome their student debt. And what it's really done, more than the saving, which I admire, is it's given them the boost that they needed. They could see a way out of this mountain of debt, and they could see how they could do both, pay down this debt, which has been with many of them for decades, and also to start saving for retirement, albeit later than they wanted to, but it gives them the ability to do that. So that's one big way for us from a debt perspective. Beyond that, we try to make care resources available to our people. One of the challenges that I hear from our employees time and time again is something's happened with a parent, they can't go home, they need to find rehab, they need to find it very quickly, and we have resources to help them find good quality rehabilitation facilities, good quality care facilities very quickly that have already been vetted, and then we have resources to help connect them with that. And then finally, we have a program called Freedom to Work, which allows employees later in their career to purchase extra vacation, to take either a week off a day off every week or several extra weeks off, to be attentive to whatever they need to do at home. And we've had employees do that when they've had ill parents and they just needed some time to focus on their parents. They're not ready to retire. They still want to keep working. They want to be connected, but they just need a lot of extra flexibility. And we've been able to do that through that program. And that also doesn't affect their ultimate retirement income because we're still paying them a full salary.
I wonder, to connect it back to the earlier conversation we had with a recent grad who talked about sort of the mistrust that a lot of incoming workers have with employers because they feel like there's no loyalty there. If I'm not going to be supported in the ways that I need, then I don't need to feel loyal in return. Have you found that these kinds of programs, and I'm sure the significant investments that have to go behind them, do they help to build loyalty? Do they help you retain workers over a longer period?
Yes, we know that participants in our Freedom to Save program are 19% more likely to stay at Abbott than those who don't participate in that program. And I actually think our culture, our infrastructure, our benefits programs, I would hope they would signal to that young worker and others that we want you to stay with us. We are a company that when people come in, they're kind of amazed, like, oh, you've been here 20 years, you've been here 25 years. At 15 years, I still feel like I'm kind of new. But we value and we really treasure those people who build their careers within the company and really understand our values, understand how we make decisions. That just makes us a stronger company and makes them stronger workers.
If I could just build on the caregiving point that Mary was making, I mean, that is truly also a whole of society need. If you haven't been a caregiver yet, one thing I think I have high levels of confidence in saying is you will probably be a caregiver at some point. That the largest burden today is on Gen X women as caregivers, but it is millennial, it is everyone. And providing that flexibility is not only hugely impactful for the individual, it also means that you're not out there recruiting, retraining and seeking people who don't sense that loyalty because they haven't been given a workplace that is supportive of them through life's, expected challenges.
Well, that's the sort of tension here, right? Is that for all the conversation around the efficiencies built around AI integration, the job changing and in terms of like new job profiles, we don't even know what the jobs will be 5 years from now. There's a basic human truth in all of this, which is that we will continue to need caregivers. We will continue to have the problems that every human being has in their family and personal life. So how do you get more employers to take these kinds of steps, the front end investments that will help them both implement the AI they need to for their business returns, but also retain the workforce that they need?
Our approach at ARP Foundation, we're partnering with the Society of Human Resource Managers, with their foundation, to do a massive campaign targeting HR professionals, because they are the ones proposing these policies to their corporate leadership and having to make the case about the ROI. And our first step was really blowing up the myths, the idea that older workers aren't interested in learning or reskilling, the idea that they're a low ROI. They're much more likely to stay for a longer period of time than a younger worker after training. So really getting the HR professional to change their mind about the older worker and the value of the older worker, so that they can be proposing the policies and structures that can retain them and make it a good workplace for everyone.
When you look at the incoming skill sets the next generation of workers are bringing, the upskilling necessary to retain existing workforce too, does it feel like a multi-generational workforce is still possible? Is it just harder to have these days?
I don't think it's a choice.
How do you look at it?
I agree with you. I don't think it's a choice. I don't know that it's harder. What I see in our workforce is that while the newer workers are coming in with certain skills, they're also coming in with some deficits from COVID. That we've actually created a program called Career RX to help people coming in off campus, because we found they just weren't as comfortable navigating the workplace. I think what happened—
In what ways?
During the COVID years, you didn't approach a professor, you didn't interact with your peers in the same way. So they were very happy to just interact through maybe messaging rather than coming to the meeting, speaking up in the meeting, understanding what I hear from them often is, I don't know when to go to my boss, I don't know how often to ask questions, and I don't know how best to approach him. So we have a program we called Career RX, where we do a little test of, here are some scenarios, and then help them think through those scenarios and how to get the information that that you need from your manager, because ultimately it's the manager who needs to be providing that, but they're not comfortable asking those questions.
So you're literally training them in human-to-human interactions.
Yes. It started as a lunch meeting with a few interns after I'd read a story about one of the accounting firms doing this. I thought they might be offended, because I think if I were an intern and someone offered up this idea of, would you like to be taught how to operate in a workplace, I would have been offended, thinking, what did I do wrong? And they basically built the course over an hour and a half. And it's been super successful and very popular because it gives them a boost of confidence that they're lacking.
I'm fascinated by this because I haven't heard about it. So tell me more. What has it changed in the way of how you interact with those younger employees?
It's really helping them to understand the importance of that manager relationship, and that it's okay to go approach your manager and ask, when I have questions, how should I bring them to you? Should I interrupt you at your door? Should I send them through Teams? Should I do an email at night? What's the best way to interact with you? In our team meetings, how should I expect to speak up, or should I expect to speak up? And it really goes to the manager relationship, but we found our interns and our new hires were not comfortable with that relationship. And that's actually what I see as the key across the entire workplace is the manager-employee their relationship. And the biggest challenge I see for generations right now is employees who are newer in their careers expect a certain level of attention and respect, and our managers who are Gen Xers, let's say, or more senior, just aren't used to that. And they didn't have that coming up, and so they're not feeling like that employee would need that level of interaction. And so I think someone yesterday said, the newer generations are used to, continual contact through technology, and the more senior generations are used to being ignored, and that if you're being ignored is a positive. And so, so we have to find a way to bridge that gap and to get both to realize that there's the truth is somewhere in between.
I would just to build on that, I think also in workplaces where there's less of a hierarchy, where your age isn't a proxy for your seniority, we're also seeing real opportunity. I think companies who are leaning into it are really realizing real gains from recognizing that people are bringing different things to the table. So the younger worker might have greater comfort with the new digital tool, but the older worker has a sense of how you show up, what it means, the value of being super reliable. There are various tools that they can kind of give to each other, soft skills.
Well, and the idea that it feels like in all these conversations we've had today, to pull them together a bit, there's such a premium being placed on the human connection, on the human to human interaction, which is in and of itself a skill set in the professional workplace. Is that an advantage?
Absolutely, and just judgment. Your brain is still forming in your early 20s. That is just a scientific fact. So having judgment, having experience, having navigated tough things, I think you bring a lot to the table, and they can learn from each other.
There's all these challenges around training and upskilling and investments from the employer's perspective and all of that. There's also this larger well-being issue, right? Which is clearly a value held by the incoming workforce, but also just increasingly in American culture, that there has to be a balance between how you work and how you live. And Claire, this idea that social connection, especially the older you get, is so critical to being healthy enough, well enough to continue to work for those next 15, 20, 25 years. Does a more tech-based system, is that sort of robbing us of those connections?
I would say yes, and I do, from what I see and observe, I see a flight to connection. We have 30,000 older adult volunteers nationwide who largely are IRS certified tax preparers, but we're getting other programs spun up. And those are folks who want to show up in person and help another person. And they are getting connection, they are getting purpose, they are getting identity, for folks who are lucky enough to be able to retire. And for other people, just being able to show up at a job. Again, I think the AI and work conversation, I think, has lost something in missing that jobs give us income, and that is super important. They also give us a sense of what we're here for. I mean, people who come into work and do a good job feel good.
Mary, I'll give you the final word on this.
I couldn't agree more. Yesterday, there was a comment that looking at verbatims from a Gallup survey at a company, number one, I want more flexibility. Number two, I want more interactions with my coworkers. So I think that summarizes where we are.
Mary Moreland and Claire Casey, I can't think of a better way to wrap up all our conversation today. Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking them, and thanks to all of you for being here today.
Thank you for attending today's event, and a special thank you to our partners, Gallup, Valence, and West Health.